Hey, it's me. Someone to talk about a mystery. A mystery of a guy that probably not a lot of people don't know about. But as a truck driver, if you are a truck driver, I guess you really kind of owe your livelihood to this guy. His name is Rudolf Diesel. He was the inventor of the diesel engine. I think it was 1889 is when he invented his very first diesel engine. But, obviously it wasn't a great engine at first, but by the time the mystery happened, he was really getting his engine figured out, and there was governments and armies all across the world that wanted him to be dedicated to their country to obviously help integrate the diesel engine into their militaries and fighting machines. But so I guess really it starts out it was in 1913 on a boat and the Dresden, which actually gets sunk later in World War One. This is like right before World War One. So, but yeah, he's on the Dresden, and he's going from Belgium to London, England, and he's on the boat. He's hanging out with a couple of his buddies that and everybody. You gotta remember at this time, Rudolf Diesel was like super famous, like Elon Musk is now. Rudolf Diesel was that guy back then. He was immensely famous. Let's see, I gotta pull up. But yeah, so he was on the boat with him and a couple of his buddies, and they were hanging out down there in the smoking room, and it got late, so they all decided to head to bed, and so that's what they did. And in the morning, they had decided they were all going to meet up, have breakfast and whatnot, and I don't know, I guess it probably took 2-3 days to get from Belgium to London, but the guys met up in the morning, and Rudolph didn't show up. So they waited around a while, and of course he didn't show up. So they went down to his room, and of course his room's completely empty. Bed was made. They did find his diary, and the only thing that really was in it was the day that he disappeared. I think he just wrote the date and had drawn it was either a cross or an X. I can't quite remember, and nobody's exactly sure what that meant. But some people tried to say that he was committing a suicide or unalived himself, YouTube terms. But they said that because he knew that he wasn't nearly as wealthy as everybody thought he was. But from what I understand, his company was really getting it ready to take off. They had gotten the diesel engine figured out, and where it was reliable. It was better than the gasoline engine at the time, and that's actually part of the story. So I'll come back to that. But like I said, the guys, the only thing they found his diary, but like his pill case was missing, and his watch was missing. So that was it. They couldn't find him, and it had been so many hours since that anybody had seen him. It was kind of pointless to turn the boat around. So the captain decided, well, we're just gonna keep going. There's nothing we can do to turn around and go back and get him or anything. So they just kept going. They got to London, and so it turned out right before he left for the trip, he had given his wife a leather satchel, and told her, do not open it for 1 week. So she did, and I guess after she realized he was missing, she did open it. And there was like $150,000 in it, in cash, which was very strange. I'm still not really sure what that was about. But apparently he was getting ready to file for like some kind of bankruptcy, but like other people were saying, you know, that was just like, it would be like a Chapter 11 where you restructure your company because you're not going out of business. You're just getting it restructured because it's, you know, it's going to take off. And that's apparently the way he was. So the money may have just been, you know, like, here, this is the money that's going to keep us held over until, you know, we really take off or whatnot. But some people say that that's the sign that he was unaliving himself. So, but anyway, yeah, they never, they searched the ship top to bottom, couldn't find no signs of him, so he was obviously gone. And then it was like a few weeks later, a ship did find a body floating in the water, and it was in the middle of a pretty big storm, but they did manage to get the body. And when they did get in, they pulled the guy's belongings, and because he had a watch, pocket watch, an enamel pill case just like Rudolph's, and a few other things, glasses that looked like Rudolph's. So they're pretty sure that was the body, but they threw the body back in the water after, you know, they got the items out of his pockets because, like I said, it was in the middle of a big storm. But so really, that's the only evidence they had that he was certainly killed in the water. But here recently, in the few years, or past few years, there's some theories that have come out that he was possibly murdered. And you wouldn't think over 100 years ago you would know who the murderers are, but you probably, chances are you probably do. The first one was John D. Rockefeller. So everybody knows John D. Rockefeller. He was the world's richest man at the time, and he was the owner of Standard Oil. And so, you know, Standard Oil, their big thing was the lighting business. And, you know, you use kerosene to light the fuel the lanterns. So that's what they were making all their money. And gasoline was a byproduct of making kerosene. So they were just dumping gasoline at that time. And who knows where they were dumping it, it's hard to tell. But they were just figuring out at that point that they could make the internal combustion engine run on gasoline. So you can't really have, I guess, you do. The big thing with Rockefeller is, you know, you would have gasoline versus diesel. And the thing with Rudolf Diesel was he could even, way back then, he could make his diesel engine run off peanut oil. And Rudolf was not a fan of the big corporations, you know, just like there's a lot of us that aren't today. Well, Rudolf Diesel was against him way back then, and he said, you know, look, I could take Standard Oil down, you know, not through laws or anything like that. I could just, the technology I have can take down Standard Oil. So, you know, that right there is a good reason for Rockefeller to have diesel knocked off. And, you know, the car business back then was a lot like it is today. You know, obviously you got gasoline and diesel, but back then, you know, electric cars were one of the very first types of cars that they came out with. You know, they had charging stations in New York City and other big cities, you know, but it was Standard Oil. You know, big oil was what knocked off the electric vehicle back then. You know, if there was no, John D. Rockefeller wasn't so ruthless, you know, electric cars could have been the wave of the future back then. You know, then there would have been 120 years of technology to dump into electric cars, so the electric car could be so much further along than it is. But Rockefeller was very ruthless, and, you know, he wanted electric cars gone, so they were gone. And like I said, he wanted Diesel gone, Rudolf Diesel gone. So there's a good reason for Rockefeller to knock Diesel off. The second guy was Kaiser Wilhelm of Germany. And you think, why would he want to kill Rudolf? Because Rudolf, he was from Germany. Well, the thing was, even though Diesel was helping the Germans, integrate the diesel engine into their military vehicles and whatnot, it turns out that Rudolf Diesel had reached an agreement with the British military and was coming to, I think that's why he was going to London that time, because they reached that agreement and he was coming there to either work out the details or either start working on, So, yeah, it would make sense that Wilhelm, he would be pissed that Rudolf was going to help the British and not him. So, that's a good reason for Wilhelm to knock him off. So there's two very famous people, and it was very good reasons to knock off Rudolf. But I don't know. I just thought it's a crazy story. Rudolf Diesel, like I said, he was super famous at the time, like Elon Musk famous, and just disappeared in the middle of a little boat trip, and nobody seems to know why or how. And to me, it's just a crazy story. He invented the diesel engine, one of the biggest inventions of all time, arguably. So I don't know, like I said, it's just a crazy story. I thought you guys might like it. Yeah, but if you want to check it out, just Google it or YouTube search it. There's all kinds of stories about it. It's pretty, very interesting story. But yeah, definitely check it out. That's all I got for this. See you guys.